Kraft, State Representative here in the 17th Legislative District in East Vancouver, Central Clark County. And I came today down to this event down at the courthouse here in Vancouver to stand with the people. I did not organize the event, but was glad to come out and stand with the people who really are feeling right now, many people on both sides of the aisle are feeling that the governor is not really listening to or addressing the overall health and well-being of all Washingtonians. And like I said, I've talked to people on both sides of the aisle, Democrat business owners, as well as those, that are Republicans and probably non-politicals. But the bottom line is there's a lot of people hurting right now. There's a lot of people that are suffering. Their emotional, mental health is suffering. Their spiritual health is suffering. Their financial health is certainly suffering. And all those things ultimately add up to also physical health suffering. And the problem is, and I think a lot of what we're seeing with people from certainly here in Vancouver's event today, and really around the state, and really around the nation, are people that don't feel like their leaders in their states are really listening to them and hearing that they are feeling severe pain and that their well-being overall is not intact. And so because of that, people are standing up and they're trying to make their voices heard. And I came out today to support those people who don't feel like their voices are being heard by our governor in particular. So that's why I came out, and I want to make sure that all Washingtonians, all 7.6 million of them, and their overall health and well-being is in the best shape possible, and I don't feel like the governor is taking the actions necessary to make that happen.
Do you feel like the governor's positions are lopsided to one area, just dealing with the virus itself and not dealing with all the other issues?
Well, I'll give you one example. The issue and area he is dealing with, if we look at the unfortunate statistics of the folks that have passed as a result of this virus, it's 1/100th of 1% of the 7.6 million people in our state. Now, every one of those lives is precious, and we're talking about health. 1/100th of 1%. Versus if you even just look at the unemployment statistics and 1.4 million that are now on unemployment or have applied for unemployment in Washington state, that is almost 2%. It's 1.8% of our 7.6 million. And again, now they are having a different type of health challenge, right? They are having some financial health challenges. Many of those people are not receiving money yet. Many are wondering how they're going to pay mortgage, rent, probably some even feed their family. So the overall health and well-being is what we need to look at, and every Washingtonian and every life is precious. And so we have to make sure we are doing the most we can for all our Washingtonians to preserve and protect their health and well-being.
What's your position on this contact tracing that they want to do to try to get society to reopen here in the state of Washington? Where do you stand on that?
I will say this. We have not been briefed on formal plans. I know that the Department of Health in Washington is working on that plan. Obviously, the governor's been talking about it. I know there's many people that are very concerned as to what that's actually going to look like when it's implemented. And many are concerned, is it going to infringe either somewhat or severely on their freedom and their rights and possibly their lives?
How do you respond to people who say that's essential to knowing where we all really are and where we're going?
I would say, not being a health expert,
right?
So as a legislator, if those that are implementing these plans truly have the best intention and well-being of our Washingtonians at heart, then ideally it will have a positive outcome. If they do not have a good intent with this effort, it will be shown, likely quickly, and people will not stand for it.
Okay. All right, thank you everyone for attending. Appreciate it. We're all So why am I here today?
Yeah.
Woo! Okay, so we are here today to support those in our community who need to get back to work. We're blessed to have a job that my husband can work from home, but others in our community are not so lucky. And I see this entire situation devolving into more desperate people who cannot feed themselves, cannot keep shelter. And I see Inslee's directives as being egregiously against the Bill of Rights. And if somebody doesn't stand up, we're going to see our rights just stomped on.
Do you feel like the reaction was an overreaction?
Governor Inslee's?
Yeah.
Yes. It's really hard for me not to see Governor Inslee's reaction as being an overreaction. It's hard for me not to see it as a power grab because if we look at the numbers and even the things that he shows us in his briefings, the charts and the graphs that he shows, he's telling us a completely different thing as if we can't read the charts ourselves. So the things that he is telling us don't add up to the numbers that are coming. We have reached the curve, we've been over that for a long time, and it's just time to get our community back on its feet.
So there's been a lot of conversation now as the reality of coronavirus and the situation upon us is hit. A lot of talk about, well, what does that do to the revenues in Olympia? Well, I would start off by saying, and I've said it to other leaders prior, but what should have happened was during the session, since January 31st, the federal government already had put out an emergency declaration that coronavirus was going to be a national emergency. That was January 31st. So at that point, there should have been a lot more clarity and interest that there was going to be potential need to reserve some revenue, and based on some situations that might take place as a result of coronavirus. Instead, unfortunately, the majority in Olympia went ahead and spent a lot of what was available, and it took the governor having to veto, several hundreds of millions of dollars to try to come back and save some money. Right now, we are being given, as legislators, an informal estimate of about $3 to $5 billion. Hopefully it's just that much of a hole in our budget as a result of the needs right now. The governor has given directive to state agencies to cut budgets wherever they can. And I've even, heard from some on, with schools that are saying they're being told they probably won't come back in the fall. People may be laid off. And the bottom line is this should have never happened. What wise people do is they don't spend all the money they have. They actually save some. And, we had $2 billion in surplus during the 2020 session. That money, especially given that January 31st, coronavirus had been determined at a national level that was going to be a problem and an emergency, there should have been more thoughtful, careful saving going on in Olympia, not spending. And we probably wouldn't have quite the level of a hole that we have if that had been done. But at this point, we are going to have to deal with realities. I will tell you, I am not in favor of any kind of an income tax, state income tax, any kind of taxes, fees, nothing. The people are bleeding right now. Businesses are bleeding right now. And if the majority Democrats want to threaten a state income tax, which I have heard, and they want to do that or any other thing that hurts the people or business, they own that as the majority in Olympia. And so we should come back to special session to try to put some help in place for those who are hurting right now and where federal funds aren't coming down as fast. That's, just the nature of the distance there.
They got $2.7 billion from the federal government, right? The state of Washington.
Yeah, we have gotten, that's probably about right. I can't quote it exactly off the top of my head, but that's about right.
And then about 800 plus million was trickled down to the counties and to the cities, I believe.
Yeah, that's about right, 810 million. So there is relief that's coming, but that's a process. Whereas here in the state, we have some money in reserves that we should be using to help the unemployment people that need the money, and some of those hurting business owners right now that are in need. So
a lot of them aren't getting the money that they've been asking for.
well, they're not, and some of these people still can't get their applications processed, and that's at the state and the federal levels. And again, our society was never built to function like this, so it's not surprising that it isn't working, because this is America, and we aren't supposed to be fully supportive or fully dependent on government. And that's why a lot of people are very concerned about the fact that they are not able they're not able to go back to work at this point. Finances are a challenge, certainly with their own personal health and financial health and well-being, but also certainly at the state and local levels in government. So a lot of change needs to happen in the right direction, and it needs to happen now, safely.